Freakazoids, robots, please report to the dance floor. Z-O-I-D-S, Freakazoids.
Coming to you from the last video store in the universe, it's Binge Movies 151! I'm Jason. This is a show that ranks, eliminates movies, determine which ones are most worthy of preservation for all time, even beyond the end times. In this episode, we rank forgotten films of the 1980s, Part 5, A New Beginning.
Be a freakazoid, come on and wind me up. I'll be a freakazoid, come on and wind me up.
This has been a fan favorite series for a long time, which is why I discontinued it over 2 years ago, because just when you think you know the answers, I change the questions. And
It's like the Disney Vault.
no copyright infringement intended, Lindsay.
No.
Yeah, you know, when people love something, you got to take it away from them.
Yeah.
Like democracy.
They take it for granted.
Yeah, you're taking democracy for granted. We're going to take it away from you for a while, and you might get it back. Probably not.
We'll see.
You know, one thing I've learned, Lindsay?
Mm-hmm.
One thing I've learned is that what unites us, we've got listeners all over the world. The one thing that unites us as a people, every country, every race, every religion, every nationality, there is one thing that unites us. Do you want to know what that one thing is? That one thing is that anywhere on earth, people will fuck up a fast food restaurant if they get angry.
That's very true. That is very true.
People will absolutely, doesn't matter if it's Wingstop, Kentucky Fried Chicken, McDonald's, Wendy's, Jollibee, something we don't even have, something we never even heard of. You know, El Pollo Loco, Pollo Del Rey, Del Taco, Red Burrito. Doesn't matter. People will fuck a fast food restaurant up. They will grab the cash register and chuck it behind the whatever. They'll grab a whole big ass planter full of real dirt and a fake plant, and they'll chuck it at a very lowly paid person behind the counter.
Yes, who's just trying to do their job.
Yeah, there's two places that bring us all down to the same level, that prove that equality is a real thing. Fast food places, because everybody goes berserk, and airplanes.
That's very true. You're stuck in just a steel tube, and there's nowhere to go.
There's nowhere to go. You're flying in the air. The tube's full of demons. The demons are starting to talk to you. You hear voices in your head. They talk to
There's
you.
something on the wing.
Oh, my God. There's something in the wing. The guy sitting next to you has got his whole asshole wide open. Farts are just coming out. You're smelling it.
Yeah.
Somebody farts in a plane. You're smelling that for the duration of the plane.
Yeah. It's in there. It's going on the trip with you.
Oh, yeah. And it gets diluted. There's nothing worse than a diluted fart. Because if it's just a big old fart, you smell it.
It hits you, then it goes away.
It goes away. Well, when it gets into that recycled air, and then it's like kind of fresh air, but it's also fart air.
Yeah.
You're like, oh.
It's just constant recycled farts over and over and over again.
Constant diluted fart air. Where am I going with all of this? One,
I don't know how we got on this.
Everybody is equal in the world, because we will all fuck up a Kentucky Fried Chicken if they don't give us the biscuits that we ordered.
Right.
You don't got the sandwich, Popeyes? I'm going to fuck this place up. That brings us all together. That's number one. Number two, everybody goes berserk on planes because you're trapped with somebody else's farts.
Yes.
Number three, the thing that brings us all together, VHS Summer.
Yes.
And what better way to celebrate VHS Summer? VHS Summer 3. It is really a tradition unlike any other. What better way to celebrate than the triumphant return of forgotten films of the 1980s, which is now Part 5, A New Beginning.
A New Beginning, that's because Part 4 was called The Final Chapter, and they didn't think that Part 5 would sound real good if they called it The First Epilogue, I guess.
Ooh.
Now, it was Part 4 before The Final Chapter 2 years ago. But just like Paramount, the ratings started to dip. Listeners started to go down. So I brought it back.
It's just more leftover recycled garbage from the last 4 times around. Formula is always the same. Jason is out there in the wind and the rain, and there are dead bodies all over the house, and everybody is screaming, and their clothes are ripped off their backs, and there's blood all over. Jason is out there. There are dead bodies everywhere. Let's go skinny dipping.
And here's the thing. At the end of this episode, it's going to be revealed I'm not actually Jason. I'm an EMT dressed as Jason. I'm actually Roy.
It's tricky.
Roy Disney.
Yes.
I would equate some of the movies on this list to a fart trapped on a plane. That's where I'm really going.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I mean, I found things that I liked in every single one. I'll say that. I found things I liked. Things.
Like a diluted fart, it's kind of fresh air. It's kind of fresh air.
Every once in a while, you can get in a big gulp of fresh air to prepare yourself for
but
the
that
next
aftertaste is
wave
still
of
ass.
fart. It's still there.
Yeah, the aftertaste is still ass. You're still eating ass.
Yes.
Now, if you eat ass, I don't have a problem with you. But to be involuntarily eating somebody's ass, that's
consent
bad.
is very important.
If I choose to eat your ass, that's on me.
Yes.
Right. If the conditions aren't right, that's on me because I decided. I didn't give you forewarning.
No, you just
I just dove in. Nose
just
first.
dove right in.
But if I'm on a plane and I'm just watching Blue Thunder on a plane, which I got a story for that. And I'm just watching Blue Thunder on a plane and you're ripping ass beside me. I didn't choose to eat that.
No.
I don't want that in my mouth.
You're being held hostage by someone else's asshole.
Yeah. And some of these movies I felt as if I was being held hostage by the assholes who wrote these movies. I was like, Jesus Christ. Some of these movies reek of ass. And I want to know.
They do.
Do we agree on what sucks? I'm just going to get to my Blue Thunder story right now.
Okay.
Because there's going to be so much to talk about when we dive into the actual movie.
Oh, yes.
I've never seen it up until this point. I was aware of it. I knew what it was, obviously. So I fire it up. I'm on a plane. And maybe you don't want to watch a helicopter disaster conspiracy movie on a plane.
Any kind of flight trauma is probably not a good idea.
But I did.
Probably not a good idea. Yeah.
Not knowing that within the first 20 minutes of this movie, a woman was going to be bare ass naked, go ass over tea kettle.
Yes.
In a mainstream Hollywood film where it's not full frontal, it's full taint.
Yeah, she is bending in ways I didn't know you could bend and doing it very well.
Gingerly.
Like it's very, it's she's making sure hands are in right places to cover certain things.
Other things are out there, Lindsay.
Other things are out there, but
it's not an exaggeration to say that it appears as if she's going to try to eat her own ass. And she might have been able to do it.
She probably could have. I would have. I'd put money on it.
So,
I'd put money on it.
Imagine me watching this on a screen in my lap. And all of a sudden, there's a very nude woman with her all of her nether regions. Somehow her nipples are covered.
Yeah.
But her entire pelvis is just up for God and everybody to see.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting next to, in first class, mind you, I'm sitting next to, first class, no class, sitting next to some guy's wife. And I got his seat because I got it before he did. So his wife's in first class with me. He's the row behind in the cheap seats. And this woman, she like looked over in my screen, and I just had to hit 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds.
Yeah, so fast forward, because they linger.
It lingers on this woman's asshole.
In different angles, like she gets in a couple positions that are just asshole up.
I've never seen. I mean, I can't say. I'm not gonna say I've never seen it. I can't say I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like it in a mainstream movie. And I've never watched anything like that in public on a plane.
I had seen the movie before way back in the day on TV, so that scene obviously was not in it.
Yes.
On TNT, they weren't showing taint on TNT.
Well, you can't spell taint without TNT.
You cannot. But TBS, they don't stand for that shit.
No. The Superstation, never. Andy Griffith was on that.
No taints across the board.
Andy Griffith never put his ass in the air on TBS.
Never.
Not one time. Matlock never ate ass in his life.
No.
Matlock wasn't an ass eater. I think Matlock, if I had to guess, I think Matlock is in the Batman category. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand fully what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of uncomfortable sex, let's move on to our first film, 1981's Excalibur. I didn't realize there's going to be so much sex in these.
There's a lot of sex in not all of these movies, but a majority of these films.
Everyone but one
really,
of them.
Yeah. Weird, uncomfortable sex.
When I recruited you, Lindsay, I wasn't like, hey, you want to watch some sleaze with me?
You want to watch some dirty sex movies for my podcast?
Oh, God. Metaphorically speaking, we're just two podcasters with our ass in the air, wanting everybody to see.
Just hoping there's choppers outside.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's content creation.
Yes.
Yeah, she's a content creator.
Yes. Always looking for the right angle.
All right, it's time for Excalibur. It's currently has a 72% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's pure Las Vegas magic. Excalibur Hotel Casino, Las Vegas. All rooms $39 Sunday through Thursday. 7 marvelous restaurants. Non-stop entertainment. Phone 1-800-937-7777. Excalibur. It will take your breath away.
Excalibur was directed by, of all people, John Boorman.
What the fuck's up with that?
Jesus. It was written by Rospo Pallenberg and John Boorman. It's a triumph return of Leslie Nielsen.
Leslie Nielsen is in this? I missed that scene.
He played the lady in the lake. Liam Neeson.
Oh, that's who it was.
Last seen The Phantom Menace. Patrick Stewart. X-Men, I think, is the last time we saw him. I'm not sure. This may be the triumphant debut of Helen Mirren.
Ooh, nice.
Helen Mirren could get it, boy.
She is amazing.
Get it.
She can get it.
It is the triumph return of Gabriel Byrne. Last not seen since the days of a devil who pissed gasoline in End of Days. It's a triumph return of Nicole Williamson. Last seen in Spawn, who he plays pretty much the same character.
Yeah.
Instead of playing Merlin, he plays a knight with Excalibur in his arm. It was released April 10th, 1981 on a budget of $11 million. The film made $35 million. Arthurian legend gets a soft focus, full frontal adaptation.
I said, dudes will promise anything to get laid. In this imagining of the entirety of Arthurian legend, from Uther to Sword in the Stone to incest, the Holy Grail, Helen Mirren, and beyond.
Oh, yeah. Like when they went to adapt Arthurian legend, they were like, what if we adapted all of it?
All of it. Everything.
Everything. And just jump cut from legend to legend to legend to legend.
Yeah.
No, you're 100% right. That's a great astute observation about the film. I knew this film mostly because its trailer was parodied by Leatherface. The Leatherface trailer. With
the saw in the lake instead of the sword, yes.
And the best thing about Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 Leatherface, or Leatherface of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, is that trailer, because that movie sucks. But that trailer is awesome.
It has Viggo Mortensen, very young Viggo Mortensen in it.
A lot of those movies have a lot of people in them, and they all
That's very
suck.
true.
Yeah, sorry, Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey. That's the next one, the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching this movie. It's the first time I've seen it. Had you seen it before?
When I was a kid,
Yeah.
so this was a revisit for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Holy Grail comes out in 75. This comes out in 81. Not that long, far removed, right?
No.
How does anybody see this movie? in 1981 and not immediately think of Holy Grail if they had seen Holy Grail?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. You'd expect all the horse, the coconuts,
Yeah,
whenever they
yeah.
come riding through, stuff like that. And then the whole Lady in the Lake stuff. It's hard to take this movie seriously at times.
It really is. And
Mhm.
it's really odd because the movie starts off, overall, it's a very dark movie.
Very dark.
Which, I mean, those medieval stories and really any kind of ancient myths, if you really read them, they all have like incest, rape, murder, holy wars and all kind of stuff.
Horrible stuff.
Yeah, right. All the classic epic stories have those elements. So it's faithful to the source material, if we want to call it that. But I was just surprised in an era where there was this resurgence of fantasy, like the late set, because of Star Wars mostly.
Yeah.
That they were just like, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to, even after Monty Python, we're going to do it as earnest as possible, as straight as possible, as grim and ugly and dark as possible.
Yeah.
Every character is completely morally fucked.
Yes.
And the only little bit of humor you're going to get is like occasionally Merlin is going to be silly a little bit. But Merlin's also going to be very morally fucked. Merlin is
he's a dick.
He's a trickster.
He is a trickster.
Which here's the thing, that's like true to what wizards actually are. Right. Like they have their own agendas and they use spells and powers to accomplish, even if they're good wizards, they're tricksters.
They're tricksters. They're gonna make sure that they have something in their back pocket to trade in later.
Now, where it really threw me off, Lindsay, is because it's so dark and so sexual. It's very sexual.
Yes, very sexual.
John Berman decided to cast his own daughter, Katrin Borman, as the woman whose beauty sent kingdoms to war, and then who is raped via the magic of Merlin and the lust of Uther.
In front of her daughter.
As Arthur's mother. Yeah. That's his daughter.
Yeah.
Igraine he cast
his daughter. Yeah.
He filmed a rape scene with his own biological daughter.
And he filmed a scene of her dancing lustily and another man just barely able to contain himself watching. Like seeing this woman, just seeing her drives him into such frothing frenzy that he has to have her. And it's very uncomfortable because he's just kind of like just staring and grunting a little bit, sweating. Yeah, it's very, very uncomfortable.
Would you like to reenact the grunting?
Well,
you almost did it.
I did.
You almost did it.
But it's. The thing
you went into actor mode for a second. You were like gonna
No, but the thing is, this entire movie is dubbed, so it's dubbed grunting, which brings it to an even higher level.
A higher level of what?
Of just kind of creepy and just in addition to that, all the dialogue being dubbed in that way, it feels just very like explosive almost. At times it just there's no nuance to what they're saying or how they're saying it. It's just blurted out quickly.
I actually think that's true because it feels, especially like some of Merlin's stuff, because the adaptation of it is like it's in kind of modern parlance, it's in modern language, but it still retains some of the clunky old-timey language and sentence structure. And then, because it's all post-sync, the performances somehow end up being even bigger. Like the vocal performances are sometimes bigger than the physical performance.
Yes.
And so then Arthur and Merlin will just all of a sudden be like,
they're just shouting, but their faces are just like nothing's happening.
It's weird.
It is very weird.
It's weird. The entire time I thought to myself, Robert Eggers would direct the shit out of this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if anybody needs to remake Excalibur...
And he would put his actors through hell to do it.
I kind of want to see Eggers do this.
I do a good job.
I want to see a reboot of this. I'm on the record if I don't really like fantasy movies in general. I don't really like them of this era.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about like knights and all this sort of shit, dragons and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't really do anything for
Mm-hmm.
me. But somehow, the guy who made Zardoz and The Exorcist 2, The Heretic, which have a lot of the same weird performance, post-sync, ADR shit.
He did Deliverance.
Zardoz! The penis is bad. The gun is good. And then just a giant head vomiting machine guns.
Yeah.
Who knew that would actually come true? That's basically just, our current world, right? Just a giant floating head that goes from
have a gun,
state to state.
Gun.
Yeah, puking guns out and being against penises, especially if they're penises with makeup on.
Yeah, we don't like that.
Penis is fine. Penis can do whatever it wants, as long as it doesn't wear a wig.
No.
If the penis puts a wig on, penis is bad.
Mm-hmm. Very bad.
But somehow, to me, this one is like semi-elevated above the typical clunky fantasy movies of the era. It's still overwrought. It's still hammy as hell.
Yeah.
But somehow it's better than like Crawl. It's better than
I fucking love Crawl. Yeah, it's terrible, but I love all the practical effects and everything in that movie. It's just kind of silly. But no, this one, I mean, they have some amazing like set pieces in this movie and battle sequences that are big and with fire and tons of extras and horses and so much armor that was made. And I think also the more surrealistic aspects of this movie elevated as well, because there's some weird ass shit in this movie, just
real
super weird, and that keeps your interest. And I think it because I mean there's a lot of weird shit in old Arthurian legends also, so I mean it's just carrying over from that. But yeah, the surrealism is off the charts in this movie compared to other fantasy films of the time.
Yeah, I think there's something about that post-sync ADR, the absolute love affair that he has with that Vaseline,
the
the
fuzzy focus, yes,
fuzzy focus,
and because there's all the especially when they get into the silver armor, it's always shining, reflecting the light. Yeah. So it just seems more and more dreamlike.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was going to say. It seems truly more and more like an actual fantasy, like an imagination, because it goes from being kind of dark and grounded in a weird way, even though Merlin, but like he's got the shiny thing, and it just gets like shinier and shinier and softer and more Gaussian blur, until the very abrupt end where everything kind of wraps itself up, and then Arthur is just put on a ship and sent off into oblivion. It's like, what the hell? What?
What? Well, and I think maybe that was done on purpose, possibly because, when the more soft it gets and shiny and pretty and dreamlike is more during the peacetime of the story, and so it's more positive and happy, I guess. And at the beginning, it's dark, it's dirty, there's fire and smoke because there's conflict and all that. And we get that same thing at the end with the battle with Mordred and stuff, and it loses its luster. There's no luster there. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Arthur himself, Nigel Terry. Horrible.
He's so bad.
Horrible.
Because, like I said, I hadn't seen this since I was a kid. So I remember Patrick Stewart and all those bigger that went on to do bigger, better things. I remember that all those people were in it, but this guy I had completely forgotten about. When he shows up at the, he's just in rags almost, the little brother at the jousting tournament. I'm like, that's the guy.
A 50-year-old boy pulls his sword from his stone. Yeah.
Yeah. He was horrible.
Yeah. He's horrible.
There's nothing charismatic about his performance at all. I'm like, and especially when the knights come to the other side and start following him and stuff, I'm like, why?
Because he has Excalibur.
He does, but there should be more to it than that. He should have more charisma and gravitas as a king and a leader, and it just doesn't come through at all.
Well, I think you're 100% right, because this story is really all about as a lot of these old stories, these old myths are. They're all like morality tales.
Yes.
Very much in the same vein as like the biblical stories of like
Mm-hmm.
King David or whatever, where you have the kid who is, looked over and is not really seen as anything, but has some sort of victorious triumph that nobody expects,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's killing a giant or pulling a sword from a stone,
Yeah.
whatever. It's the hero with 1,000 faces,
Yes.
Joseph Campbell monomyth stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's the reluctant leader, and then there's a supernatural force, a wizard, a prophet or something that says you'll be the king.
Yes.
and his birth is foretold and whatnot, and then he doesn't really want to do it. He's unsure of himself, and then as he gains stature and success and confidence and peacetime and all those
Mm-hmm.
things, his arrogance is his undoing.
Yes.
Be it Bathsheba from the window and then all of that, or be it breaking Excalibur,
Mm-hmm.
or being blinded to the Guinevere stuff.
Yes.
So this follows that typical trajectory,
Mm-hmm.
but because this guy is so just unlikable,
Yeah.
and his performance is so just bad, it's just a bad performance all the way
Mm-hmm.
through. We never believe him as that leader. I
No.
never believe him as, this guy brought peace to England and Britain. I never believe it.
Nope.
I don't believe his undoing. I never believe that he's so charismatic that his arrogance leads to the undoing of all of Britain, because he's never charismatic. He's
He's
not.
He's
No.
not. And the other thing that runs through this entire film is that lust will be your downfall.
Yes.
And because, well, at the beginning, Gabriel Byrne, he's like, I just want one night with her, Merlin. Let me get laid. I want to get laid.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever the cost, Merlin.
And
Whatever the cost,
whatever
Merlin.
the cost.
Yeah.
And Arthur says that too when he wants
Yes.
Guinevere, wrong legend, Guinevere to fall in love with him. He says, I don't care what the cost. And that's another downfall. It's like, you may want this so bad, but you're not thinking what could be too much to give back. You know what I mean?
Correct.
They say whatever the cost without thinking what does that actually mean? Because that could be something that I don't know or don't have yet that you're gonna want. And that's where they both fuck up.
Well, honestly though, that to me is the strongest part of this movie.
Yeah.
Of seeing that same cycle play out again
Mm-hmm.
and again. And even Merlin sees Uther's lust as a way of accomplishing a goal that he has.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is to produce some kind of a king who be worthy of Excalibur.
Yes.
In his mind, to bring peace to Britain and because Uther fucked up this truce because of the lust and whatnot. So I understand that. Like, he had to invest all this time in Uther, and Uther drops the ball at the very end because of, his lust.
Mm-hmm.
And so he wants to try to do it again and produce an heir. And that ends up being a fatal flaw because he's producing I don't mean to be punny here, but he's producing an heir out of error.
Yes.
He's trying to produce a righteous king out of sin.
Yeah.
And deception.
Big
So how
deception.
is a child born of rape and deception
Mm-hmm.
and sorcery going to end up being the pure light to guide all of Britain into peace?
Exactly.
It was never going to work. So
No.
even Merlin is deceived.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's just like his fucking father.
And his actions.
Too bold. Because
Yes.
Yeah. Because Merlin's like, hey,
and those
if you end up marrying this woman, she's gonna fuck your best friend. And he's like, I don't care.
Yeah. Because I love that. I do love that little scene where she gives him like the tart with like opiates in it or something.
Yeah.
And Merlin is like, the future's like that tart. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know for sure what it contains until you take a bite, and then it's too late. And by then it's too late. You've already taken the bite.
And what's great about that is before Merlin is even done with his metaphor, decision's already been made. And he's like, he barely finishes the sentence. He's like, too late.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, it's like it's already he's watching it happen again. There are a few lines like that I think are actually really effective. Like my favorite line from this movie is, when a man lies, he murders some god in the world, which is just a great weird fantasy
thing to say.
line,
Yes,
right? When a man lies, he murders some god in the world. And we're also at that like the point of time where it's very Lord of the Rings-esque, and I don't know where it first emerged, but Merlin is constantly saying, the gods of once are gone. It is now the dawn of the time of men. Which is so Gandalf, right?
Yes.
Like it's time for the pagan gods and the magic of it, the magic world to fade away
and let men take over. Yeah.
And the Christian God is going to take over, and Arthur has a Christian wedding. It still has paganism mixed into it, and it obviously I think is mixed into some later accounts of Arthurian legend, because early Christianity made its arrived in Britain in like the 6th century, and the Arthurian legends are supposed to take place in the late 5th, early 6th century. So it's like the same time.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting connection to make of, well, if we were going to tell this story honestly and earnestly and seriously, how do we account for the fact that there is no magic in the world, right? Like sorcery and magic and dragons don't fucking exist anymore.
Yeah.
So how do we take this as real history if it's all fantasy, right? And their explanation is, well, those things did exist, but right at the time of Arthur, they were fading away because people were turning more towards the Christian God.
Yes.
Who's personified by an incarnate human being in Jesus. So it's becoming the time of men as opposed to the time of like the primordial gods of Britain and whatnot, and dragons. And so magic is decreasing and religion is increasing, and Merlin's powers are fading, and he's trying to, his last effort before he goes off into the mists of time is to try to create a worthy king to wield Excalibur, and he fails.
Yeah. He wants to leave the world in the best hands that he can if he's going to not be there anymore, and he makes the wrong choice. And also, in doing this act, he creates another great evil in the world in Morgana.
Yes.
Because she sees what happens that night when Uther comes in disguised as her father and rapes her mother, and she likes magic and seems to have something inside her. She can see the future some, and he like spurns her advances essentially. And so she's like, all right, I'll go off and create my own heir.
Well, yeah, that's a whole
weird thing.
Because she's like a little girl and he's an old wizard, and she hates him because of what he did.
Yeah.
And he totally doesn't give a shit. But then she's trying to seduce him when she's older, and then he's attracted to her, but doesn't want anything to do with it. But she is trying to get this spell.
Yeah, the words of making, or
the words of the
like
words of curse of making, words of making, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, and that's when the movie starts to get really
weird.
Another one of Arthur's sins is rage, his anger, his temper, which his dad also had, because twice it cost him the sword.
Yep.
The first time he actually breaks Excalibur.
Breaks the thing.
Yeah, when he's fighting
Lancelot.
Lancelot,
yeah.
Yeah. And then he's like, oh, he's all repentant or whatever, and the Lady of the Lake forgives him and gives him back the sword. Then he does it again when he like strikes the land or whatever and like curses God. And then because Merlin's magic is connected to the land, the sword ends up going through Merlin and pinning him.
Yeah.
Just as he was about to. Yeah. Just as he was about to use that chant, that spell to entrap Morgan Le Fay, because he caught on to what she was trying to do. And so he's going to use like the dragon's breath and the words of making or whatever to try to like lock her into this prison
she
state.
wouldn't need she wanted to see the dragon, and he knew that she couldn't like take that on and it would destroy her, I think is what happened.
And that she would destroy the world basically because she's evil. So so he's tricking her and like, oh yeah, I'll
give you the power, and she can't take the power.
And then he ends up whatever. So yeah, I think the themes are very strong. I think some of the character, like the turns where you see these repeated cycles of sin and downfall and hubris and arrogance and lust and all this sort of stuff. I like the fact that the movie is bookended where, going back to that pagan versus Christian thing, Arthur's life begins with the pagan magic of Merlin, and Arthur's life ends with the quest for the Holy Grail.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
A different type of magic, a different, a Christian quest. He's born of one type of magic. And at the end, it's all wrapped up in a different type of magic. Now, I will say this. It's hard to say that an epic is too long.
Yeah.
However, this movie is 30 minutes too long.
It is.
Too long.
And
it's too long.
I mean, and like we said at the beginning, they pack a lot into this movie.
Everything.
So much stuff. Starting, like I said, with Uther, and then we get the ending of the animated film Sword in the Stone. And then, his wedding and meeting Guinevere, and then he encounters Lancelot, and then that whole mess happens, and then we get the story of Percival, his entire saga, from when he comes in to when he finds the Grail. And then we get all the stuff with Morgan Le Fay and Mordred, the weird little boy in the very cheap looking gold armor.
Yes, the
spray painted armor, and their final battle. I mean, there's so much in this movie. It's hard to keep track of. And now
I will say though, the it almost was reminiscent of, and obviously it'd be the other way around, but the Mordred Arthur battle. So because that's his son/brother.
Yeah.
wait. Son/nephew.
There, yeah. Nephew son.
Yeah. It felt very Francis Ford Coppola, Dracula.
Yeah.
Because you had the backdrop of like the fading sun, and then the obvious set, but then like the spear through Arthur where his guts are at the end of the spear.
Yes. And then the sword through Mordred. Yes.
Yeah. I was like, okay, yeah. Again, there's some really creative, interesting, artistic shots in this movie.
The gallop through the cherry blossoms to I think it's O Fortuna from Carmen.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, okay, maybe you know this. Is this the movie that popularized O Fortuna again? Because
I think so.
Throughout the rest of the decade, that song was
so
in fucking everything.
No, I think so because that scene of them riding through the cherry blossoms with that music, I mean, it's like Ride of the Valkyries in Apocalypse Now. It's an iconic piece of film matched with a iconic piece of music.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was going to say, I hope you like O Fortuna, and I hope you like Soft Focus, because you're going to see it, and you're going to hear it. You're going to hear it. Okay, I give this movie a 7.5 out of 10. It's too long. It's 30 minutes too long. It's overly ambitious. It doesn't completely work, but it's just odd enough that it kept my attention all the way through. And it's my number one for the week. I'm putting it on the short list.
Oh my
Straight off the top,
God.
Excalibur. I know people are going to think I'm nuts. You probably think I'm nuts.
No, not really. I came up with something pretty similar. I gave it a 7.5 because it is a technical achievement. I mean, there's a lot of special effects in this movie. Some of them aren't so great. Like the whole sequence at Camelot, I fucking hated. Because it just didn't fit with everything else, and it looked cheap and bad, and it wasn't lit right. I hated that whole middle sequence of them at Camelot.
I agree.
Except for the hall with the round table, I thought that looked very, very good.
Yes.
Better than everything else, at least.
Yes.
In Camelot. But yeah, there's great set pieces. That battle at the castle with the fire and the smoke, and they're fighting in the water. It's great. When he meets Lancelot on the bridge with the giant waterfall on the back, that looks great. And many of the other things that we talked about. But yeah, it's the acting is weird. The lead does not carry the movie through whatsoever. But there's so much weird shit in this that I love it. Helen Mirren is in it, and she's doing a bunch of weird shit, and her gowns are amazing. So I put this.
That's not the only thing that's amazing. Holy moly.
No, she's amazing. I love Helen Mirren. But I put this as my number 2. This is my second favorite.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I think we've talked enough about Excalibur. Let's move on to, this one. 1983's Blue Thunder, which currently has a 78% on Rotten Tomatoes.
The military let police officer Frank Murphy in on their secret weapon.
I thought it was illegal to arm police helicopters.
They made him part of the plan.
Do you think you can fly it? You flew it, didn't you?
They wanted him to follow orders.
We turn the base and we're going to open fire.
He wanted to follow his conscience.
I want you to pick up a package for me. Don't stop for anything or anybody.
But will they let him live to do that? Roy Scheider, Blue Thunder, the ultimate weapon, rated R. Now playing at a theater near you.
Again, this movie was directed by John Badham, of all people.
Yeah.
And it was written by Dan O'Bannon,
I know.
of all people.
And I can see where some of his stuff comes through with some of the
100%.
humor and the sexual stuff. That's totally Dan O'Bannon. That's his style. So, but I had forgotten. I didn't know he wrote any part of this.
No. He wrote it with Don Jacoby. Mm-hmm. It is the triumphant return of Mario Machado, who plays himself in this. But I know him from RoboCop, and I learned in this movie he was actually a real news reporter.
Okay.
I thought he was just a fake reporter from RoboCop.
Yeah. No, he's a real guy.
I knew Lisa Gibbon was a real person. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that, whatever. It's triumphant return of Daniel Stern, last seen in Leviathan, Six-Pack. Triumphant return of Malcolm McDowell, last seen in Clockwork Orange. It was released May 13th, 1983, on a budget of $22 million. It made $42 million at the box office. Now, follow this, folks. World-weary Vietnam veteran turned helicopter cop on the edge gets sucked into a surveillance state conspiracy. One more time with panache. World-weary Vietnam veteran turned helicopter cop on the edge gets sucked into a surveillance state conspiracy.
I have very similar. A Vietnam vet turned copper in a chopper is caught up in shady military dealings when he's targeted to test out a new high-tech helicopter.
How many early 80s cliches can we shove into one fucking character? He's not just a cop on the edge with a Trans Am who speeds through the streets, the wet streets of LA at night. He's not just that. He's also a completely PTSD Rambo-style Vietnam veteran. Mm-hmm. They're just cramming it all up. Okay.
Everything.
I ended up having to watch it twice because I finished it, but I was like, I need to watch it where I don't feel deep
I need to
shame
see that scene again.
Yeah, no. Oh boy! I think once was enough for me. This movie fires up, and I look at it and I go, "Oh, I remember when people knew how to make movies." Uh-huh. Because by all accounts, this was a moderately successful film. Mm-hmm. It's on a list called Forgotten Films in the 1980s. It's not a widely loved film. Yes, it produced a TV show and but.
And a remake. I found that out today. There's a remake in pre-production.
Okay.
I don't know why, but there is.
Who's asking for that? But this movie genuinely, not every part of it, but it genuinely, there is craftsmanship involved.
Oh, God, yes.
And it genuinely, you look at it and you go, oh. I talked to somebody off mic about this, a friend, and the realization that I had, and this is so obvious, it's stupid for even me to say it out loud, but I'm going to. The realization of why these movies looked, even mediocre, mid-tier movies from this era typically look so good, is not just the fact that it was more practical than CGI, blah, 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 but it's because the people working on them were... In the 80s, were in their 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
And they had, from the time that they were like 15 years old, had worked through the gold and silver age of Hollywood.
Yes. Yeah.
Your lighting people, your cinematographers, your gaffers, your best boys, your production designers, your costumers. these are people who essentially grew up through the development of Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Almost from its origins, almost from the days of the first talking movies.
Yeah.
Some of these people were still working in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
They're all gone now. So
Yes.
all of the classic craftsmanship people, they're dead. They're dead.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But
there's a
the
lot
guy
of
who
stuff
shot
forgotten.
Yeah, it's forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who shot this, the cinematographer, is John A. Alonzo.
Yes.
Because I was like, the cinematography is incredible in this. Who shot this movie? Well, he shot The Magnificent Seven in Chinatown.
And Scarface.
And then like older, like even movies before that.
Yeah.
Like this guy had been a cinematographer for 50 years
Mm-hmm.
by the time the 80s had come around. Had worked with every major director who ever fucking lived.
Mm-hmm.
Had worked on high budget movies, low budget movies. It was the cinematographer on so many classic films.
So many things.
And then you realize, oh, well, all of these tradespeople, these craftsmen and women, there was no money in what they're doing. So you could work on one of the great all-time instant classic films like Chinatown or
Mhm.
Magnificent Seven. And then you'd have to work on another movie
Yeah.
because you weren't making that much money.
No, it's just a job.
It's just a job. And they're
Mhm.
going from job to job, but they're taking these high-end experiences and this knowledge base that they're cultivating over decades, and they're applying it to a jumbled mess of a movie like Blue Thunder with some of the most bizarre, idiosyncratic dialogue I've ever heard. Every single character seems like they're in their own movie.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that.
It's not even like they're talking to each other.
No.
It's like you took a bunch of random dialogue and just fed it into a script, and it's like, well, this guy's in one movie, Daniel Stern's in one movie.
His girlfriend's on another fucking planet.
She's on another planet. What movie is this? What movie? Where is this woman coming from? And then his responses to her are from a completely different movie. It's like, what the fuck? And that's ultimately, the script is garbage for this movie. The premise is fine. The cinematography is outstanding. The direction is good.
The stunt work in this movie is incredible.
Last 30 minutes of this movie are nuts.
Yes.
You'll never see anything like this again. They took 2 real fucking helicopters through downtown LA.
Through the LA River. They dropped chicken from the sky. Okay.
Oh, it's incredible.
Actual chicken.
Yeah, they're in the LA River Basin, going like Terminator 2 style, going under underpasses.
Mm-hmm.
It's all practical.
Mm-hmm.
It looks incredible for insurance reasons. It'll never happen again unless Tom Cruise wants to do it. And yeah, it's just, and then you're like, but all the dialogue is awful.
Yeah.
The characterizations are awful.
I
think Roy Scheider is miscast also. I'm just
He is. This is not his type of character that he does. What he does well is what he did in Jaws. The more he doesn't play like self-assured, cocky, grizzled characters very well, because it's just not who he is.
No. Yeah. So this movie revolves around a bunch of cliches like Cop on the Edge, Vietnam vet, conspiracy thriller, sci-fi warning, action war movie. The characters, I had so many questions, Lindsay. Like Kate, like my question about Kate, his girlfriend, is she mentally ill?
She has to be. Who flips a U-turn doing 50 in the middle of a road to turn around and go wrong way on a one-way street with their child in the car because they missed the turnoff to a train ride?
A child train ride.
A child's train ride, yes.
Who leaves so many messages with a boyfriend who dumped you? Okay.
I don't understand their relationship at all.
Here's what I think it's trying to say, because she leaves a message or says it to him in person eventually, like, "How was your time in Pasadena?" Blah 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 blah. I think that what happened was he went to a psych facility. He's just coming. He was on leave for psychiatric reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And then he came back. That's why they're like, he's timing himself, and they're like, they want you to do another psych eval and all this sort of stuff. because he was apparently off duty in a completely different town.
Because they talk about he had like an episode with his former observer, but they don't really tell us what actually happened.
Not at all.
Not at all.
No. And at some point during that, he decided, I need to break up with this crazy lady because I'm crazy. And so instead, she just leaves him minute by minute messages on his answering machine every 5 minutes. And then he gets home from afternoon shift at like 3:00 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And then she just shows up at his house with a key that he wanted back that he doesn't know that she has.
Yeah.
And her small child in her arms at 3 a.m. to beg him to give her the dick.
Or to get a blender.
Well, but no, because it's for the blender. But she says, I want my blender. Can you give me my blender back? And she's like, and there's something else I need you to give me on one of the answering machine messages.
That's right.
And she's like, and only you can give it to me. And I'm like, oh my God.
Jesus, lady.
So was the plan to like take her sleeping child and put him on the couch and get dicked down by Roy Scheider?
Yeah. I think so.
This woman is deeply unwell.
She does not make good choices. But she is a ride or die bitch. She will drive to that drive-in and jump into a dumpster and flee from the police, crash 100%. Through fences because you asked her to do it. To get a tape from point A to point B. And God damn it, she does it.
Their reconciliation is when she finds her blender, she finds a box with a table skirt. Is that what that is?
A tablecloth. What is
it? Tablecloth.
It's a big thing of fabric.
Yeah, like a big doily.
Yeah.
And then she puts it over his head and she forcibly kisses him. Uh-huh. And then they get out to the car and turns out the kid was faking that he was asleep the whole time. Mm-hmm. And then she's like, I'm going to really work on you because we're going to have to start getting serious about this relationship. So I'm going to really be holding you account, whatever she says to him. He's like, she's like, are you ready for that? And he's like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm like, what? He almost shot her when she came through the door. One blender, one kiss later, and he's just back in.
Yeah, I don't know. They say crazy women are wild in bed, so I don't know.
It's true. It's true. It's true. Yeah, it is. One of my favorite reviews on Letterboxd, I don't even remember what the movie is. Mm-hmm. And I've said it before on the show. One of my favorite reviews, one of the top female reviewers on Letterboxd, I think her name is Oat Milk with a Q. She wrote a review for some movie. It might have been Vertigo. Mm-hmm. And she just said, I don't like this word, but I'm going to use it. She said, how good pussy got to be to do all that?
Exactly.
For Excalibur and Blue Thunder. I quote the Lady Oak Milk going, how good pussy got to be to do all that?
Yes.
There are other women in the world.
They are.
Jesus. There are other women in the world, Roy Scheider.
Yes.
Oh, boy. Murphy is also mentally ill. Lyman Good. Are we in or are we out on Lyman Good, Daniel Stern? The character and the performance.
I mean, I think he's one of the better parts of the movie. Because, I mean, there's not much to his character. He's the rookie that's shacked up with the grizzled veteran. You know, he's
a red shirt.
Yeah, you have to have that dynamic. And I mean, he's got some good funny parts. I mean, like when he's trying to grab the lady's boobs through the screen, because for some reason, anytime they go out to test equipment or show equipment, they have to zoom in or spy on a woman's private parts for some reason.
As a woman, how do you feel about that?
I don't know. I mean, because they're up there like in official capacity doing this. It just seems really, really gross.
This is from a writer who held a woman at gunpoint while pornography played on the TV.
Yeah.
To cast her in a zombie movie.
Oh, Dan.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Oh, sexual deviant Dan.
Yes.
Rest in peace, brother.
But when it got towards the end with his character, I mean, going in, he's not going to make it. And he gets it pretty bad.
Yeah, 100%.
But the stuff where all of a sudden he knows how to do all this stuff on this super high-tech helicopter, like with
only one of its kind.
And he knows it. He's got his clearance. He's asking it questions. He can use all the equipment and get the disc and reprogram the code so they can't erase it and da-da-da-da-da. And then he leaves a voicemail on the recorder that's on the floor of the copter to tell him where the thing is. And I'm this is going way off the rails.
That's bad writing, because let's break this down here. You hit all my points. So this thing is so advanced that they can monitor everything that's happening in this helicopter remotely, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's communicating whatever. Why does he have clearance to be able to look up classified information?
Yeah.
I understand that the chopper can do it
because
it's basically connected to a network. I also don't know how it's connected to a computer network like this before Wi-Fi exists.
And it's connected to like every computer.
Yes, correct. But that's fine. It's a little sci-fi-ish. Yes. Fine. He should not have clearance to just be able to be like, let me look up secret projects, and it would tell him, right?
No.
Because eventually they're like, who are you? How are you authorized to do this? And the computer starts to like shut him down. That's all just plot convenience to be able to move the plot forward.
Mm-hmm.
That was very crudely written.
Yes.
He takes a fuse out of the plane for the recording equipment. How do they not, wouldn't that set off a sensor back at HQ that they fucked with the, or at the very least it would show up there's an electronics error in the helicopter. Of all the places he goes through all this rigmarole to steal basically like a black box.
Because they recorded a conversation that would put their superiors in a compromising position.
they recorded the conspiracy. They ended up accidentally getting the conspiracy and figuring out what this helicopter is really going to be used for, blah, blah, blah. And the fact that they were involved in a killing.
And they're going to murder Roy Scheider.
They're going to murder him because he's too close to the truth. Whatever. Fine. Okay. So he leaves a recording, presumably here's what doesn't make sense. He leaves like this happy, funny recording.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason why you would leave a recording like that is the assumption that I might die.
Yeah.
In case of my death, here's where I hid the secret recording, right? So you can find it and protect yourself.
Yeah.
And expose this plot. But instead, that doesn't seem to be the motivation for why he records the message.
No.
And of all places to record the message, he records it in the helicopter.
Yeah.
On a secret military base that somehow, even after they're wanting to kill him, Roy Scheider could just walk onto.
Yeah. No
after
problem.
He's being hunted by the police.
Everyone's looking for him.
And blamed for Daniel Stern's murder. He's still able just to walk onto the secret military base, get into the secret helicopter, take the hidden fuse, put it back in, listen to the secret recording. It's so stupid.
And then take off in the secret helicopter.
It's so stupid. I know he's got to get back in the helicopter because that's the climax. But the entire idea that the secret message he needs from his dead friend to find the thing is recorded in the thing that's the cause of all the controversy to begin with.
It makes no sense.
Fucking stupid.
And how would he even think to listen to it? Because Daniel Stern he gave him some kind of cryptic message on his machine about the helicopter, but somehow he's able to put that together to like, oh, he means the fuse that's on the floor, and if I plug it in, I'll be able to hear him tell me where he left this thing. It makes no sense.
It makes absolutely no sense. Okay. Cochran, aka Malcolm McDowell. I think he's horrible in this movie.
He is
when he's like, catch you later.
Yeah, it's
so
too much.
Bad.
It's too much. Bad. I think maybe he was trying to see just how much he could get away with. I don't know. But it's way over the top and not in an enjoyable way.
It also feels like he's from a completely different movie. Yeah. It's like his old rival who's British, but somehow was fighting with the U.S. military in Vietnam, who's now part of a CIA surveillance state. Why is this British guy involved in American espionage? I didn't
doing
fucking
top
understand
secret
it.
weapons testing. Yeah, and they never really go into depth about like what their past contention was. I mean, he like threw a guy out of the helicopter in Vietnam. We
Yes.
find out later on that's the trauma that he keeps reliving when he gets his episodes or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we hear something. Cochrane says something about I would have had him up on a court martial if he hadn't been injured. But there's no resolution to that story. We don't know why they fucking hate each other that much, or like what the history is, and I don't know. It just doesn't make sense.
It feels like plot points from a different script that were half baked and then just inserted into this one.
Yeah,
which is what so much of this movie feels like. I will say this: that I do appreciate movies from this era, and I just harp on this ad nauseum, so it's pretty annoying. But I'm gonna do it again. Where have all the odd-looking people gone in movies?
Right?
Movies used to be populated by odd-looking people who could deliver lines in interesting ways and be memorable without upstaging the leads.
Exactly. And those people have like disappeared.
Character actors don't exist anymore.
No.
Really. Everybody's too attractive in movies. Background players don't even get dialogue anymore, and if they do, it's immemorable. If you have a memorable moment in a movie, you just end up, it's just a cameo where you get somebody, it's like, oh, well, it's somebody from Community shows up, and it's like, oh, well, ha ha ha.
Yep.
And they're going to say a funny line, and it's like, oh, Hannibal Buress is going to show up. It's
or
like,
some late night host is going to make an appearance.
It's not the same thing.
No, it is not.
I miss the days of which you'd have these character actors who would just pop up in different movies, and some of them you'd recognize, and some of them you didn't. And they would write like interesting dialogue for them. They'd get a scene. Everybody get like a little scene, a little line, and you'd remember that dialogue and you remember that line. And years later, we quote those lines.
Yes.
We think about it all the time.
Buck Flowers made his entire career off of just the one
being a bum,
stupid drunk driver.
Yeah, he just was he made his entire life work being a drunk bum. That's it. Yeah. R.I.P. Buck. R.I.P. There's some. Speaking of dialogue, there's some really weird quotes in this. I got two here for you. I wouldn't fly with him for a bull that pissed Jack Daniels.
Yeah, I mean,
why does it have to be a bull? And why does it?
Why is it pissing? I mean, just say for all the Jack Daniels in the world, if you like Jack Daniels that much, and how is it coming out of a bull make it better? I don't know.
We just came up. You better get back here. This is Warren Oates. But Warren Oates is doing his own thing in this movie.
Yes, he is.
He goes,
he has some great lines.
We just came up with hot mince pie under each arm. What? We just came up with hot mince pie under each arm. What does that mean?
I don't know what that means. I'm assuming it's a good thing. But
no, I think it's a bad thing.
You think it's a bad thing? I don't know.
Because he's like, you got to get back here. Well, Roy Scheider gets suspended and reinstated 10 times in this movie.
Yes. Yeah. Like, because
you're grounded. Well, actually, you're grounded because you're a psychopath, but you better come fly this experimental helicopter.
I hadn't seen this movie for a long time. So I thought that when they did that, they were trying to set him up as a patsy, like, oh, this PTSD war vet went nuts and did this shit with a helicopter, I thought that they were trying to go at that angle, but no. They just like, nah, that's okay if you're crazy. Come fly this $5 million piece of murder.
Well, what's hilarious is that when Malcolm McDowell is like, well, I know that guy. He's a loose cannon, blah, 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 blah. I was going to get him court-martialed. The other guy's like, oh, well, I'll talk to the boss. I didn't realize you guys had a history. And you just picking random fucking pilots to fly this experimental Defense Department
that has access to top secret information.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell? You didn't do a background check on the guy?
It's so crazy.
It's bad. It's badly written.
And they don't even go into because what really turns the screw in this movie is when the female activist is attacked and killed.
Yeah.
That's when he starts to put things together, because he finds a piece of the paper that flew out of the briefcase, whatever. But they never go into like what she had discovered or if she was in on it. They really don't explain that fully.
No, my best guess is that they have been inciting violence in the low-income area and basically pretending it was minorities who were doing it, essentially.
And she was figuring it out?
She was figuring it out that it was a conspiracy to justify militarizing the police with surveillance state technology. And it was basically just a conspiracy. Now, the ultimate question is, why do they want to have surveillance state? We never get a reason for what is the reason for the nefarious surveillance state plot. What is their end goal? What are they trying to accomplish? You know, we don't even get
anything.
We don't even get the classic 80s thing of like RoboCop, where OCP wants to sell the technology and make money. Because there seems to be like it's government, but there's also the corporate guys who are part of that cabal. And if we just would have got an explanation that, oh, well, they want to be able to sell these things, you know, they make them for $5 million, they sell them for $20 million. They're just trying to enrich themselves, and they're inciting racial fears
and violence,
and classist fears to personally enrich themselves, right? And to convince greedy and maybe the local politicians are getting a cut of the sale, or what, you know, like there's backdoor dealings and whatnot. We got no elaboration whatsoever, none whatsoever as to why they're doing this, what the purpose is, who benefits from this, nothing.
And this movie has a little tiny opening crawl, which essentially says all these weapons are real, so be afraid or something. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
It was just, it's like was that the point of the entire film? I mean, instead of trying to put out some coherent plot and message.
Well, it's very much like Enemy of the State, right?
Yeah,
where
it was just like, ooh, spooky government technology kind of movie, like The Net and Enemy of the State and shit like that.
I think that there is something to have been said for the militarization of police, which we've obviously seen escalate.
And it was happening right around that time.
Right around that time where we're going from, you know, revolvers to fucking, you know, military grade weapons and whatnot for police officers. I think that there's something to be said for that. There's something to be said as like a sci-fi warning of this is going to go to the big brother state, right?
Yes.
Kind of a thing. And people will be able to peep on you in your most intimate moments and listen to you fuck and whatnot.
Or disappoint your wife.
And just, yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah, I know. Now, so I think, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole. What's really interesting is they don't have any compunction of looking at boobs and taints.
No.
But when a guy comes too quick, they're like, well, we better erase that. We don't want to embarrass the guy.
Oh, we better get out of here.
We better get out of here.
This isn't fun anymore.
This guy blew his load too early, so we're going to cover that up. That was their conspiracy. They're going to cover up the guy that just finished too quick.
Yep.
Yeah. So, you know.
Oh,
this is a misogynistic film, basically. This is an anti-female orgasm film.
It is.
Yep. As much as I've trashed it, as much as I think it doesn't work on a script level, a dialogue level, as much as I think Dan O'Bannon was probably high on opioids when he made this movie, or Jack Daniels that was shooting out of the dick of a buffalo or whatever, I still give it a 7.25 out of 10.
Yeah.
Because it looks so good for the most part. You're right about those compositing shots of the jet fighters.
Yeah, the jet fighters. Oh, it's so bad because everything else was so good up to that point. And then they bring
helicopter,
those out.
When Blue Thunder first arrives.
Blue Thunder.
In the sun.
Yes.
And then it just appears in shadow, basically. I was like, holy shit.
No, it looks, incredible. It's very impressive.
Yeah. And I'm a sucker. I think you and I are similar in this way. We're both perverts, but we're also, I think we both love 1980s LA at night, driving with the a super slick wash car where the neon lights of the city street are reflecting off of the car as a guy's speeding down the highway. Yeah. I fucking love that. And it's got some amazing nighttime LA shots of Roy Scheider in a T-top Trans Am.
Yes.
Fucking zooming through. And I love that car. I've loved that car since I was a kid. If there's any car I would want, I'd want that car. Although you can tell in this movie, the suspension is fucked in that car. The 80s, man, there's those suspensions in those vehicles were dog shit.
Dog shit.
That guy hits the brakes at a stoplight and the whole fucking car lurches forward. Jesus Christ. How did anybody live? How did anybody live past the 80s?
Yeah, we didn't even wear seatbelts there either.
There's no seatbelt. And there's just pure gasoline coming out your tailpipe. Yeah. Just pure carbon emissions. All right, where do you score this one? Where does it rank for you?
I scored this one as a 7 because despite all the shit we talked about with the plot and how convoluted it is and how just wacko the characters are, there's so much fun in this. I had fun watching this movie, all the helicopter action, the explosions, the scene where they are demoing the copter. It is hysterical. Because they've got everyone in bleachers at one end of the strafing run. I'm like, that cannot be the safest place for these people to be, especially when this thing is taking out like one civilian for every 10, they say, but it's obviously way, 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 way more than that.
Way more, yeah.
Way more than that. Those exploding little white wooden
Children. Yeah. Speaking of character, that scene, I love the guy who I don't know who he is, but he's just like, he says something like, she don't look normal. She don't fly normal because she ain't normal.
Yes. No.
I was like, holy
that
shit,
guy, I loved
shit.
that guy. He was memorable. But that scene's hysterical. But no, I love this movie for the fun and the action, and there's some incredible action. And this was my favorite movie. This is my number 1.
Their number 1 is Blue Thunder?
Yes, I had so much fun watching this movie.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
No.
Yeah.
It was
Binge
fun.
Lords at the Lindsay Washburn?
Yes.
Or just Lindsay Washburn on Twitter?
On Twitter, it's at Lindsay Washburn.
On Instagram, it's at the Lindsay Washburn. Yeah, hit her up. There's one cool scene. It's badass. It's a really badass scene. It's when his crazy girlfriend is leading a high-speed police chase and she ends up on the highway and the cops have her at gunpoint.
Yeah.
And fucking out of nowhere, that helicopter rises up behind them. That's cool.
Cuts that motherfucker right in half.
That's cool.
That was awesome.
That's fucking cool. Honestly, this movie was probably elevated 2 points for me. Just simply by the last 30 minutes. He machine guns a cop car in a high-speed chase in half. They're blowing the top floors off of high-rises. They blow a barbecue shack up, and barbecue chicken flies all over the street.
All over.
They're zooming through the LA River Basin. It's truly incredible stuff.
It is incredible.
It's shot well. It looks good. It's practical. It's very, very, it's dangerous as hell. You'll never see it again.
Nope.
So for that reason, I bumped it up. It's my number 2. I know a lot of people hated this movie who are doing the Binge Movies challenge, but it's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah. Oh,
speaking of hating movies, let's move on to Jake and Maggie Gyllenhaal's dad. Sleazorama, 1985's Certain Fury, which has no Rotten Tomatoes score, except for the audience score, and the audience is at 37%.
Ooh.
Disney Summer Classics will continue after these messages.
Introducing a new soft drink with 10% real juice. New Slice.
We got the juice, and I see blast. A burst of juice in every glass.
7-Up doesn't have juice.
We got the taste, we got the twist.
Sprite doesn't have juice.
We got the juice, the others miss. We got the juice, we got the splash. Slice, slice, we got the taste that no one has. New Slice, we got the juice.
Diet too.
Slice, slice.
certain fury.
Nobody move!
They met in a crossfire. Framed for a crime they didn't commit.
I just want a place where I can figure a way out of this mess.
And if they can't make it together,
I want you away from me. Now!
they may not make it at all. But they're not going down without a fight.
And we know you're in there.
You're gonna do it, do it.
Tatum O'Neal, Irene Cara, Certain Fury, rated R.
Coming soon, consult your local newspaper for showtimes.
This film was directed by Stephen Gyllenhaal. It was written by Michael Jacobs. It is the triumphant return of Tatum O'Neal, last seen in Little Darlings this very season. It was released March 1st, 1985 on a budget of not available. It only made $1.3 million.
Wow.
25-year-old teen delinquents run the mean streets of Sleaze while fleeing a massacre.
Tatum O'Neal grew up and is terrible at acting. She and Irene Cara team up to escape a situation they had nothing to do with, a guy named Sniffer, and the tough underbelly of LA to find a better life and get shot on a bridge.
What's Sniffer sniffing?
I don't want to know. He's sniffing everything, and it's bad. Ugh.
Let's start here. Certain Fury has a beat-em-up video game name.
Yes.
And a beat-em-up video game poster. And everybody in it is dressed like characters in a beat-em-up video game.
Yes.
This could easily, like the poster of this could easily have been a Double Dragon spinoff.
Streets of Rage.
Streets of Rage, Final Fight, Final Fury, Fist of Fury, whatever, all this sort of shit. The movie itself, however, is part and parcel of a trend of teen delinquent genre pictures and in a sub-genre of teen girl delinquent sub-genre films where basically it's preying upon the fears of suburban Republicans that the minorities in the inner city are going to corrupt your pure white virgin children. They're going to become drug addicts and street whores, and your teen daughters are going to run these streets and become punk rock whores.
Yeah, essentially.
Punk rock kids
whores
are going to take over public schools and murder teachers and all this sort of shit, right? Like there's like Class of '84, the parody of all of that, which Trump put out, the Class of Nukem High. Even New Kids is kind of like that a little bit.
Yeah.
I just did another one we talked about. It's basically the same fucking thing. The Albert Pune had one. Dangerously Close. I think.
Yeah.
Is it Dangerously
I think
Close?
It's Dangerously Close.
Yeah. Where the whole concept is the kids. The kids aren't all right.
Kids are
they're
not
listening
all
to rock
right.
and roll, and they're smoking cigarettes and maybe some left-handed cigarettes, and they're running amok, right? Like, and your daughter's gonna become whores. That's what this movie belongs in, that exploitation subgenre. So. I got questions though.
Okay.
Are the courtroom killers in this movie the two oldest teenagers ever in film history?
Yeah. Well,
they're 50-year-old women.
They are. And because I never thought that at all, that they were supposed to be teenagers. I don't know, because they're all old. They're all women. Every single one of the girls they bring in are grown women.
So do you think they're not supposed to be? Because I got the impression it's like juvenile court or something. And they're supposed to be.
It's possible.
Teens.
I don't know.
But maybe you're right. Maybe they are just supposed to be 50-year-old women, because they're very clearly 50-year-old women. Speaking of ages, Tatum O'Neal is 22 and Irene Cara is 25 when they make this movie. And they're definitely supposed to be teenagers.
Yes. Young.
I think that this has an absolutely thrilling initial premise.
Yes.
And an incredible opening in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I think is exceptionally good. It's completely over the top exploitation garbage, but it's good at what it's doing. The moment that Tatum O'Neal has to deliver a single believable line of dialogue. As soon as they get out of that fucking sewer, this movie goes into a sewer.
Yeah, she's awful.
She is awful in this movie. Awful. Unbelievably awful.
Yeah. It's so bad. It defies logic. because it's one of the worst performances I've ever seen.
Oh, it's horrible.
It's absolutely horrible.
Unfortunately, the only line delivery of hers that I believe is when she drops the N-word like 4 times in this movie. That felt real.
It did feel a little real.
And honestly, it's so horrible. Her performance is real bad.
Mm-hmm.
Truly one of the worst ever. But this movie goes from action schlock to just really like denigrating, sleazy, not even like fun sleaze, gross.
No, you want to like cry in the shower after you watch this movie.
You don't want to cry in the shower because Sniffer will find you. That's how he got her. She was crying in the shower.
That scene is terrifying. Terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying.
One of the most terrifying assault scenes I've ever seen. They accomplished what they were going for with that scene. And it's too real.
But it's too real.
Yeah.
This sense that like when they're dropping N-bombs and stuff, the sense that you get is that whoever wrote this is a racist. It's not like, oh well, it's a screenwriter and he's writing bad characters, and so bad characters are saying bad things, and that's dubious sometimes at best itself.
Yeah,
but you can go, okay, well those are villains and they're supposed to be bad, and it's a different era, and we're supposed to be, But here's the problem: if the movie had gone on and Irene Cara had emerged as the protagonist. And she overcomes all of this and gets her revenge, it still would be sleazy, but it'd be a sleazy revenge movie. Instead, this movie wants us to believe that these two girls, including Tatum O'Neal's character, Scarlett, who is absolutely an evil, villainous character.
The worst piece of shit human ever.
They're going to end up being best friends?
No.
Is insane. Irene Cara is there for like petty larceny or whatever it was. Like driving without a seatbelt or stealing a car.
They had like pot in the car, and then the cop called her a word, and so she called him a racist fucking honky.
Yes. And so if the idea is, the injustice of the criminal justice system against minorities and people of color, even though she comes from an upper class family.
Yes, her dad's a doctor.
Right. And so here's an upper class character who's being discriminated against because of the color of her skin, and she ends up falling down into with the dregs of society and has to fight her way out and prove her innocence.
Yeah.
That's a movie.
Yeah.
That's not the plot of this movie.
No.
The plot of this movie is that you're going to watch her be called the N-word repeatedly, verbally attacked.
Forcefully injected with drugs. With drugs. Some kind of drug.
Assaulted, potentially raped, all of this stuff over and over and over again. And at the end, the girl that keeps putting her in these situations, they just end up best friends. And then the movie ends. The movie just ends.
It just ends.
There's no resolution.
No. And she's just shot there. And it's almost, her dad comes over to like check her out because he's a doctor.
Yeah.
And it's just very weird. Like they're going to be a family together or something. And it's just, it doesn't work. And because her character's so awful.
But aren't they still on the run, and haven't they been involuntarily
and they
connected to the death of a judge, cops, et cetera, et cetera? How does that get resolved?
The magic of filmmaking. I don't
know. Oh, it's horrible. This goes into
I had seen this movie before.
Me too.
But just recently. It was,
me too.
Yeah, because I did it for like another podcast or something.
Yeah.
The character of Scarlett, which is Tatum O'Neal's character, for the ending to work, that character needs to have she had to have redeemed herself somehow or die. It would have worked if she died.
Yep.
But the only good thing that she did for, is it Tracy? Yeah, for Tracy, Irene Cara's character, is she carried her out of the crack den that she took her to and was gonna leave there. And I'm just like, after she left her at the apartment of a guy who she knew was going to try and assault her.
Yeah.
Just all this shit and just lies and lies. She constantly lies.
A guy who is probably making underage homemade porn.
Yes.
And selling it to perverts.
Yeah. There's a camera set up with a bed and stuffed animals. It's very gross.
Yes.
It's very gross.
Yeah.
And then Peter Fonda fucking shows up.
Going.
And then fucking Peter Fonda shows up.
To show up in this movie as a guy who frequents teen street prostitutes?
Yeah.
It's Peter Fonda. Peter Fonda.
Peter fucking Fonda.
He just shows up as like a billionaire on a yacht, and he's somehow with dirty, filthy, smelling like shit Scarlet, but he's involved in drugs and prostitution.
And he has this weird affect of he's not a germaphobe per se, but he has some kind of thing with cleanliness, because when she spits at him, that freaks him the fuck out. So he cuts her face, and then her blood gets on him, and that freaks him out. And he's constantly cleaning his fingernails with his knife.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Peter Fonda is trying to do something with that character, but it just doesn't mean anything for the greater story.
If you're a germaphobe,
no.
You know where I'm going?
I know exactly where you go. No, I would no.
Every once in a while, I like to look to see what the real critics had to say about the movies we cover here on the show.
Oh, I'm excited for this.
This is from March 4th, 1985. Richard Christensen, who was at that time the entertainment editor at the Chicago Tribune, he writes, Gyllenhaal's handling of the opening volley of violence shows that he can hack out a movie with some craftsmanship. But certain fury is basically, fundamentally, absolutely garbage.
Yeah, I mean, that opening scene is fucking awesome. That shootout, it's awesome. So I mean, there is some stuff in this that I think the crack den looks amazing. Yeah. It's very creepy and dark, and there's just weird people all around doing all number of things with each other and to each other, and that's
shunting.
Yeah, they're doing. And Scarlett's fight with Sniffer in the crack den, he's like stabbing her with used needles and stuff. It's just fucking wild. The stuff that they did in this movie was wild, but it's so gross and dirty and sleazy and nasty that it just negates all of that.
It's a degenerate film.
It is a very degenerate film.
And not in a fun way. Because sometimes people make degenerate films, but it's with like a little bit of a wink and a nod.
Yeah.
Or like, again,
this is super exploitative.
Yes.
Too.
If Lindsay and Jason agree that the movie sucks, boy, especially a movie like this is kind of in both of our wheelhouses theoretically, and we're both like, this movie is fucking garbage. It's definitively garbage.
It is garbage. And like I said, it has a few things going for it as far as like production design and a few sequences, but everything else just takes it away.
Yep. All right. Moving on to a movie you maybe even never knew existed, despite the fact that Steven Spielberg is attached to it. 1985's Young Sherlock Holmes, which currently has a 64% on Rotten Tomatoes.
There's a clever murderer on the loose, and I'm going to find him. A case this challenging, this exciting.
I need you, Watson. We're in this together. We're a team.
Could never be solved alone. Steven Spielberg presents...
It's only a hallucination. Maybe not.
Young Sherlock Holmes, directed by Barry Levinson. Rated PG-13.
Starts Wednesday, December 4th at a theater near you. Check your newspaper for show times.
Young Sherlock Holmes is directed by, again, what is going on here? Barry Levinson.
What the fuck?
Written by Chris Columbus.
Yeah, it's the Goonies team.
Based on characters by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. It was released December 4th, 1985. I want you to note that, okay? Mm-hmm. It was released December 4th, 1985. And a budget of $18 million, it did make 63.7, so it was a hit. The failed Sherlock franchise prequel you never knew existed.
Sherlock Holmes is young and tackles a case involving Egyptian cultists with his new school friend Watson.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg presents this movie. It is an Amblin movie. It's directed by Barry Levinson. It's written by Chris Columbus. It is based on existing IP. It comes out during the holiday season. This film is the blueprint for what every IP prequel, remake, franchise film is going to be about 30 years later.
Yep, exactly.
This movie had all of the ingredients, including an after credit tease of a sequel.
Yes.
That feels like it was made last week.
Oh yeah.
And we'll get to it eventually, but everything about this movie is what movies are now.
Yes, it's like we find out like, oh, this is how he got his hat. This is how he got his pipe. This is why he says this thing, and this is why there's this thing in the later stories. And it's like, but it doesn't mean fuck all right now.
All right, let's dive into it. So I hear the frustration in your voice. Let's dive into it. Sophie Ward plays Elizabeth in here, who is his love interest, and she basically just exists to be fridged.
Yep.
Because that then explains why Sherlock Holmes never has problems with women as an adult.
Yep.
It also explains away gayness.
Yep.
Because there's always that him and Watson lovers, but it explains it all away.
Yep.
But I know Sophie Ward from what you know her from, which is Waxworks 2, Lost in Time.
Oh my God, I haven't seen that movie in a long, long time.
Well, looks like Lindsay's coming back to watch Waxworks 2, Lost in Time. You keep doing this to yourself.
Wait.
You think you would learn.
No, I think I would
Lindsay.
Learn, but I keep.
Don't tell me shit, because otherwise I'm going to rope you in again for another 5 hours to talk about bullshit. The thing I remember the most from this movie, I swear to God I saw it many, many years ago, is the stained glass night.
Which is amazing.
Still amazing.
And it's the first completely digital character on film, in any film.
Take in what we're saying.
Yes.
This movie was released at Christmas time when a lot of movies weren't released then.
Mm-mm.
But they, because of James Cameron, they learned, you can make a shit ton of money if you do that.
Yeah.
That was obviously the strategy here. It's a family film, kids movie with, but 80s kids movie, so it's kind of dark as shit and weird.
Very weird.
Steven Spielberg, Barry Levinson, Chris Columbus, based on Sherlock Holmes, the most famous detective of all time. So a ubiquitous name that everybody would know around the world. With CGI.
Yes.
And special effects. And yet this movie has no legacy. Nothing. Legacy. This is the first fully rendered CGI character in film history.
By a fledgling Pixar.
Yes. And nobody talks about this movie.
Nobody talks about it. And the thing is, I don't think I've ever seen this movie before I watched it for this.
Really?
Yeah. I vaguely remember the flying machine stuff, but I don't think as a kid I ever saw it, at least not all the way through, because I had no memory of anything. I don't have any nostalgic feelings for this movie.
No, me either.
At all.
Yeah.
I could see if you did watch it a lot as a kid, how you would
100%.
have those feelings for it, like we do for other movies. Because like how you said, this has so many pieces in it that should make it should have been remembered. It should have been remembered.
This movie is the exact reason why I do the show in general, but specifically this Forgotten Films of the 80s. Because in every episode we get to at least one movie where you're like, why
Why doesn't anybody remember this?
Does nobody remember? And even people remember, I saw that. I thought it was charming, or it was on HBO a bunch, but I haven't thought about that in years. And you're like, because when it fired up, and I vaguely remember seeing it, but it didn't stick with me. I don't have nostalgia for it.
No,
I had no remembrance this was an Amblin film.
No, not at all.
And not just an Amblin film, Amblin in the heyday of Amblin.
Heyday, yes.
Right? And it's just like, and it's loaded with talent, except for the actors, because you never saw these people again. Never saw them again.
Never.
Not a one of them. Except for Sophie Ward, who went on to Waxworks 2, Lost in Time, which Lindsay Washburn will be joining me for in a future something. Okay. Here's how I feel about this movie, and here's how I feel about prequels in general.
Mm-hmm.
Prequels for me, for the most part, don't work, and here's why. Christy McNichol's character has a line in Little Darlings where she says, "We started in the middle. We never even had a beginning."
Mm-hmm.
Because she's saying, hey, we can't, now that we fucked, we can't go back to having a normal relationship because we did this other weird part before we even knew each other.
Mm-hmm.
We already had sex, broke up, broke each other's hearts, cheated on each other. How do we go back to the beginning? Because we never had one in the first place. Mm-hmm. That's how I feel about prequels. Typically, you tell the best parts of whatever your story is in the movies you're making.
Mm-hmm.
To then go back and go, well, now we're not going to do the middle, which is all the interesting shit. We're going to go back and tell you how we got to the interesting shit. It doesn't work. It never works for me.
No, it doesn't work for me either. And another reason for that is because you never buy into the peril. Because
100%.
These characters are going to live. Because I know that because this is the story before the other story. I already know what happens later.
Yes.
So there's no peril.
100%. The only caveat to that is if there's one character that I think a prequel could potentially work,
mm-hmm.
especially at this time, it would have been Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Because Sherlock Holmes was so ubiquitous, even more so than he is now. He was so ubiquitous. There have been so many different adaptations, so many different incarnations. The stereotype of a detective was a pipe smoking elementary Dear
mm-hmm.
Watson. We're still getting Johnny Lee Miller, whoever doing Elementary. You're getting Cumberbatch and Sherlock. Like, it's this infinitely adaptable sort of thing. You can
mm-hmm.
put him in the past. You can put him in the future. You could put him in the present. Because I think was there even a cartoon was like Sherlock year 3000 or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
It was in the future. Because all you have to have is a extraordinarily logical, other than Robert Downey Jr.,
mm-hmm.
like weirdo action movies. All you have to have is a guy who's a genius at deductive reasoning and a sidekick, and call him Sherlock Holmes. You can stick him anywhere.
Yep.
So it would be interesting to see what formed and made him who he is.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the one time, because also, Sherlock's going to solve the crime. So he's never the one in peril for the most part. It's always somebody else.
Yeah.
But still, somehow this doesn't work.
Well, because when we meet Sherlock, he's already Sherlock. He's just younger. He's
That's a good point. He's like fully formed.
He's already fully formed.
That's a good point.
He just needs some experience. It's like, well, how did he get to that school? How did he grow up? Why did he take an interest in detective work? That's what you want to know. Not that's why the beginning of my synopsis was Sherlock Holmes is young. That's it.
That's a really great point. Because you're right. At the end, it's just like, well, how did he get the pipe? But everything, the character is already the character.
The character's already the character. There's no developing of that in this movie. And that's the biggest thing in this movie that killed this movie for me.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Mm. Now, here's another weird thing. I don't know if you noticed it. And another reason why this movie should be remembered is this movie is Harry Potter before Harry Potter.
Thank you. Yes. Oh my God. I was thinking that through the entire thing. I'm like, this is Harry Potter.
The score sounds like John Williams, but it's not.
No.
But it sounds like the score from Harry Potter.
It does.
The school is Hogwarts.
It's Hogwarts. And I mean, some of that similarity can be because it's just the British schooling system around Victorian times. But they've got the scarf, the way the tables are laid out in the chow hall. It's Christmas. It's two boys and a girl teaming up to sneak into the library after hours to figure out what the weird shit is going on around here. I mean, it's fucking Harry Potter.
And, right, the teachers have this past history that's coming back, and that's kind of happening in the background, but the kids are also involved in, like, day-to-day shenanigans. Yes. It's the same plot structure as Harry Potter.
Yeah. It's the same. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Oh, and Dudley
the one kid
is
even
Draco Malfoy.
Yes, he even turns him into Draco Malfoy at one point with a T. With a T.
Yes.
I'm just like, what the hell is happening?
And on top of that, even though this is set, for those who haven't seen the movie, there's this person, there's a mystery, somebody in a hood is going around using a blow dart to shoot these guys around this school, and around this town. Basically with a hallucinogenic
The first guy has
drug.
The same thing happens to him that happens to Jodie Foster in that CBS after school special. He just starts freaking out and jumps out a window.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But what it allows the movie to do, because this isn't a fantasy movie, it's set in the real world, is the hallucinations. When we see it from their perspective, it allows there to be dragons and monsters and the Grim Reaper and really weird spooky
space raping pastries.
Yes. But all that shit feels like Harry Potter.
It does.
But in Harry Potter,
it's magic. Yeah.
It's magic, but in here it's just hallucinations.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it allows this movie to have magic without having magic, but in a logical way. And the whole time you're watching, you're like, holy shit, man. You cannot tell me that J.K. Rowling didn't fucking watch this movie.
Maybe that's why maybe that's why no one talks about this movie and that it's forgotten, that they want people to forget this movie.
But Chris Columbus took what he wrote here.
Yes.
And then directed the first couple Harry Potter movies.
Yes, I know.
He made this movie again. And the original director, the original guy who was supposed to direct the Harry Potter movies was Steven fucking Spielberg. This is a Frank Marshall, Kathleen Kennedy, Steven Spielberg produced film.
Yeah.
Written by so many of those people went on to be involved in Harry Potter.
Exactly.
They did it 20 years beforehand, and we're like, it didn't quite work. Let's just run it. Nobody remembers.
Yep, let's do it again. The same thing
again, and it worked because the book series was popular.
Yeah,
and they made and everyone was like, "Oh, Harry Potter is so magical. This is the most wonderful thing ever." And I get it, like they are charming, but then you go back and you're like, well,
this is the same thing. They did this already. No,
this is the same goddamn movie.
I was thinking that through the whole thing, and I'm like, has no one else noticed this yet?
Oh, I mean, it's not even just like, it's Victorian there. You're right. I mean, it's everything.
It's everything.
It's the humor,
the little shops that they go in. The production design is it's the same shit. It's the same 100%. Exact thing.
100%.
It's crazy.
What they realized was we've already done this. We could just do it again with a much more popular character and produce the movie the exact same way.
Yep.
Only this time it doesn't have to be hallucinations and Indiana Jones. It'll just be magic.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do it with CGI. And that's it. That's the only difference.
Yeah.
That's the only fucking difference.
It started making me predict the end of the movie. I'm like,
100%.
well, I know who the bad guy is because I saw Harry
100%.
Potter.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of that, right? So it's like when the main guy who's basically like Sherlock before Sherlock, the old headmaster, who's like, et itar, itar, itar. I was like, well, that's Wraith. And I know this is a kid's movie, but I'm like, obviously the villain is Wraith, right?
Yeah.
And before that, it was fairly obvious because the only teacher who's nice to him in the entire school is the fencing guy. And so it's like, well, obviously. And then so what I thought was going to happen is, he'll turn out to be Moriarty.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
But then that doesn't happen.
No.
Until the after credit scene.
Yes.
Where at the very end of the movie, there is a straight up Marvel after credit scene.
So Marvel, because it does that tracking shot to the people arriving, and then we go up the stairs and into the hotel, and it's impressive.
And Wraith is there at the hotel, and he's signing in, and the name he signs is Moriarty. Then it pans up to his face. He lifts the one evil eyebrow, cuts to black. I'm like, that's a fucking Marvel.
Yes.
They're setting him up for the sequel. Like, oh, you thought it was Moriarty, but then we convinced you it wasn't Moriarty. But the twist is
it is Moriarty.
And that's how he gets his arch rival. And it's like, again, as I say it, I got goosebumps because I'm like, this should fucking work.
Right?
Why does this movie not work? What is wrong with this movie?
It's the lead. I think it's the lead. I don't know. I think it's the people that they put in it. They don't sell those characters well. Maybe the characters aren't well written. The kid who plays Watson, I did enjoy his performance.
Yeah, he's good.
He's good. He's funny. He's consistent.
Yeah.
His character has a bit of an arc. You know, he's trying to learn and he's new and figuring things out.
And get courage. And
get courage and things like that. So I enjoyed that character. But he seemed like the only like 3-dimensional character in the entire movie. Everyone else was just like a thing.
I think you nailed part of it, which I didn't fully think through, but I think you're 100% right, which is if it's going to be if it's a Holmes and Watson origin story, and Watson develops as a character, but Holmes is basically a 15-year-old fully formed Holmes, except for he doesn't have the hat and the pipe.
Yeah.
That's not interesting.
No, it's not.
I want to see him become and learn and struggle and make assertions that aren't right. But he's like, he does it. He's like, when they do it's not really Quidditch, when they do a Harry Potter style game for the trophy, and he figures it out. Like he's too good at everything.
He's too good.
And on top of that, this movie does something that really pisses me off. We have old Watson narrating the story.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. But the worst part of this movie is when we get to the point where they have to solve the main mystery.
Yeah.
Old man Watson, as the narrator, just literally explains
it all.
And we never see Holmes figure it out.
No.
The joy
we don't
of
know
Sherlock,
why he figured it out or how.
They just yada, yada, yada. Like, he's just like, well, then he figured out the poison came from here. And that word, you don't see it. He just tells you.
Yeah.
The joy of Sherlock Holmes is watching the deductive reasoning process of pulling together, like every other adaptation of Sherlock Holmes ever has figured out. That's what makes that character cool. Is like, well, there's a mark on the wall, and that was this. And
that leads me to this. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, how does he put together clues that nobody else would see? They don't do it. He just fucking says it. It's so stupid.
It's so stupid. It's such a waste.
Yeah. The best joke in the movie feels like something out of an Edgar Wright, though, because maybe the movie, I would say maybe the movie needs a little bit more humor because it's kind of dry. It's kind of serious.
A little bit, yeah.
But the best joke is almost towards the end where he's in the Lestrade's office and he's like, when he does the quote.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Police work is about imagination. He's like, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Where did you get that from? And then he goes, it's sewn in that quote.
It's framed on your wall, dipshit.
On your wall right behind you. The way the kid sold that is the best thing he did in the movie. It's so dry and it's so funny. And that's seriously, it felt like something out of an Edgar Wright film.
Yeah. No,
I truly
it was
laughed.
hilarious. That was a good gag.
Fucking hilarious. Yeah. Ultimately, for me, the movie falls short because I think in a movie like this, we either want to be Holmes, we need to want to be Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
Or we need to feel like Watson, that we're on the adventure with him.
Yes.
Right?
But
there has to be
yeah,
there has to be somebody that we connect with that is an avatar for us on the adventure.
Yeah.
And instead, the adventure is just told to us, and then we feel removed from the action. That and the fact that they just basically recreate Temple of Doom with white guys pretending to be Egyptian.
Kalima.
Oh,
I'm like, rip a heart out, please. Rip a heart out.
They were going to, because when they're in the head, that's straight out of Temple of Doom.
That's straight out of Temple of Doom.
Yeah, where you can see them through the eyes. They're looking down the cult ritual.
Yeah,
and they're going to take the girl. They're sacrificing her and a mummified whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and that scene just seemed very incongruent with the rest of the film.
Kind of did, yeah.
It did, because some of the setting looked cheapish. I don't know. It just didn't fit with the rest of the film. Just the way that the people were dressed and their shaved heads and stuff. And it's like, I still don't quite understand like what that group was or what they were doing. They wanted revenge because this group of rich asshole college kids came in and ruined their town and dug up a bunch of shit, you know.
Well,
borrowed their daddy's money to go fuck up some less fortunate people
and kill people.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. The other problem with this movie is we're supposed to feel sympathy for the victims who are being killed by Moriarty, essentially, and the Egyptian cult. But then when it's revealed why he wants revenge, he's the victim. Him and his people are the victim. They're part of this Egyptian group.
They wanted to build a hotel.
Yeah, it ended up they were raided for their treasures and their history, and then people died, and it's like it's really horrible.
It is horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible. There's a bombing. It's like I don't feel bad for these old rich fuckers dying.
Nah,
let that dragon eat his balls off. I don't give a shit.
The demon pheasant.
Yeah. That's actually kind of creepy when that bird came alive.
The funniest bit of trivia I learned about this movie is that one of the animatronic guys on this movie is the guy who directed Blade.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah. He's puppeting a demon pheasant back in 1985, and then he directed Blade.
God bless him.
God bless him.
I give this movie a 7 out of 10. It's middle of the pack for me. It's my number 3.
Yeah, I give this a 6.5, and this is, what did I say? This is my number 4.
Oh no. Here's the problem with this movie. Ultimately, what it boils down to is young Sherlock Holmes should be a classic.
Yeah.
And instead, it's just another movie.
It is, yeah. There's
yeah. I don't know what else to say.
This thing has on paper. This should be a classic, timeless for generations to come.
Yes.
And it just doesn't work. It had everything going for it.
Yeah. And instead, the same people went on and did it again, and they ended up getting it right later. So.
Yes.
Oh boy. Okay. I can't believe it. Let's move on to 1986's Thrashin.
Woo! Gnarly.
Which also does not have a Rotten Tomato score, but has a 71% audience score.
Oh wow.
Corey Webster is taking off for LA. He lives to thrash. He loves to compete. But the competition is a killer.
Check it out, Hook and the Dagger. Don't think twice. Take it if you want it. Don't think twice. There's nothing in your way. Don't be blind.
You're gonna be the most beautiful girl at the club.
The music of the Bangles, Animotion, Devo, Meatloaf, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Thrashin.
Thrashin was directed by David Winters. That's another familiar name. We'll get to him in a second. It was written by Paul Brown and Alan Sachs. How it took two people to write this movie, I'll never know. It's a triumph return of Josh Brolin, I think last seen in Endgame. Triumph return of Robert Ressler, last seen in Vamp. This film was released August 9th, 1986, on a budget of not available. It made not available. California himbo gets caught in a West Coast story while pursuing skateboard stardom.
Mine is Josh Brolin is young and is the best skateboarder in the valley and will beat the Daggers in the big race and get the girl. Find out on the next episode of Thrashin'.
Does kind of feel like a TV show.
A little bit.
What are you thrashing? What do you got?
What do you got? I was like,
so stupid.
Fuck off.
At the very least, at least she calls them out and she's like, wild ones.
Mm-hmm.
At least they wrote the whatever. But
yeah,
David Winters was in West Side Story as a dancer. He's
yes.
a background player. He's a character in West Side Story, but not a major character.
Mm-hmm.
And then he proceeded to make West Side Story 10 more times on his own at a very low
Dancing,
budget.
it's on. Yeah.
This is West Side Story with skateboards. He is the dancing it's on. He's a elderly man who loves to watch teenagers go on date night montages to ice cream parlors. It's got to be about dance. It's got to be about skateboarding. I do think it's hilarious that he very obviously, as a classically trained dancer, had a problem with breakdancing because he writes an entire scene in this movie
that just trashes the fuck out of
breakdancing. And very obviously, breakdancing was still pretty mainstream in 1986.
Yes,
it had barely just gotten started.
Yeah,
and then he has these. He goes, breaking is a memory, and the other guy goes, for wimps. It's not enough that they're skateboarders. They got to be like the Jets, right? They're skateboarders or the daggers.
The daggers.
And we know they're daggers because their clubhouse, their flop house, or orgy house has literal switchblades and daggers
everywhere,
glued to every piece of the wall.
And they have a van that's spray painted with like their name and all
with
that.
Fucking daggers on it, man. We're the daggers. You mother. They don't ever say fucker, but they say mother. You mother. I'm gonna mess you up, mother. What's really interesting, this took me back to a bygone era before the internet where, and you know this as a Midwesterner, social phenomenons very slowly progressed either from the East Coast or West Coast across the country.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me that we didn't get California fashion until like 1989 in most of the Midwest.
Oh yeah, no, it was like, yeah, the 80s hung around for a little bit in the 90s here in the Midwest.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we were living the Southern California 1980s lifestyle in 1991.
Yes,
we were dressing like this and up until about grunge, basically.
Yes, exactly.
This is another teen culture cash-in movie, right? Like the Tony Hawks of the world are starting to get popular. And so we got to cash in on skateboarding because that's what the kids are into.
Yeah. And this is a story that's told over and over and over. They just change the sport or the location. And it's the same fucking movie. You know, there's the star-crossed lovers. There's a big event that one of them needs to win or is challenged. And it's always against the rival who's either the brother or the sexual rival or whatever. And then
sexual
at the end,
rival. That's a very technical term.
It is a very technical term.
Sexual rival.
Sorry, that's my English degrry slipping out.
Wow.
but and then at the end there's the reconciliation. It just is what it is, and so they just stamped these out in the 80s to whatever sport or thing was popular, because you have BMX bikes, you've got skiing, all sorts of shit.
Regattas. There's a lot of regattas.
Yeah, a lot of regattas.
Yeah. Rob Russler, who is the sexual rival. And I'm gonna be honest, in this movie, young Justin Bieber looking Brolin does not, to me, strike me as a viable rival to Rob Russler.
Yeah,
that's just my taste. That's just my taste in men. If I'm fucking either one of these guys, I'm fucking Rob Russler. Rob Russler's so much more handsome than
he is much more handsome at that in the movie. Yes, yeah. I think Brolin's in a little better shape, maybe, but that's just because he has his shirt off more, so you can see it.
I like bad boys. What can I say? Who doesn't? Who doesn't want a bad boy?
And he is a bad boy in this movie.
Oh, he's a bad boy.
Very bad.
He's a bad boy. And he wears guy liner better than just about anyone I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen him without it.
Oh, it looks so good with guy liner.
Mm-hmm.
However, his relationship as Tommy with his sister is a bit Excalibur-esque.
It is a little, it's possessive, it's controlling.
Feels a little Arthurian, if you know what I mean.
It's jealous. It's weird.
Is he the brother and the sexual rival for his own sister?
I mean, there's definitely both of those vibes going on with him. Because I mean, he says it as himself. He's like, I don't like any guys coming near you. Well, that means that you want to be the only guy that comes near your sister. So it's very confusing.
It's very confusing. How does that work out, Lindsay? Did you ever cover that in English?
No, well, I mean, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. like we said in Arthurian legend.
Yeah.
Tongue-tied. But yeah, the relationship is super creepy.
At least Arthur didn't know it was his sister he was fucking.
That is very true.
That's very Rob Rustler knows, and he wants to go anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, the most interesting thing about this movie is you got Meatloaf, who is has an unreleased, uncredited the theme song, which is Thrashin'.
Uh-huh.
You got Devo. You got the Champs, you got Jimmy Deemers, you got the Bengals, you got a very, very young Red Hot Chili Peppers who appear in the movie. You got White Sister, you got The Truth, you got Fear, you got the Screaming Sirens, you got the Circle Jerks, you got Rebel Faction, In Emotion, Fine Young Cannibals.
Yeah.
Very early Fine Young Cannibals. And more Devo. So the soundtrack is pretty fucking loaded.
No, it's a great soundtrack. It's very California, very 80s, and it just works.
It just works.
What else are you gonna put in a movie like this?
That's true. Well, here's where I'll agree with you. I think that movies like this grow in their worth over time because they end up becoming an artificial facsimile, but they end up becoming like a time capsule of a moment in time.
Exactly. A time I never experienced, but
correct.
a time and a place I never experienced.
No, you experienced it. You experienced it in 1992.
True. In small town Iowa, it looked very, very different.
The fashion, the most interesting time I had watched this was looking at the graphic design, the t-shirts, and the fashion and the sensibilities. And all that sort of the bygone era sort of stuff.
Just them skating down Hollywood Boulevard. It was because they're going through people and past stores and the cars, and it's just fun to see. It's just fun to see that.
Yeah. Everything else I thought stunk about this movie, and every time Webster, which is a horrible name for your main character, every time Webster and Christie part ways, this fucking guy David Winters is the exact same thing from Dancing It's On, where every time they part ways, they're clearly not talking to each other.
No.
She's on one side of the street, he's on the other. They wave to each other, and they ADR Tommy Wiseau and dialogue as fast as they can into a split second.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand. We don't need it. First of all, we don't even need the scene of them saying goodbye to each other. Who gives a shit? But repeatedly, he does this. He does it like 4 times in this movie. And I'm like, and he would do it 30 years later with Dancing It's On. I think he died, didn't he? Didn't he just die?
I think he recently passed, but I'm not 100% sure.
Rest in piss, David Winters. Your movies are garbage. These movies are garbage. This guy sucks. Oh, well, the only other thing that he's most famous for, other than Dancing It's On and West Side Story, is that he was responsible for. I believe this is right. I think he co-founded AIP American or API American Pictures International. I think he was a co-founder of that for David Pryor's films. David A. Pryor.
Oh, okay.
So he helped form the company that gave us Deadly Prey and all the other.
So he did do something.
Yeah, those are his accomplishments. His accomplishments are he was in West Side Story. He milked it for the next 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
He made knockoff versions of a movie that he just happened to be a background player in. He hated breakdancing, and he gave us David A. Pryor.
That's a lot.
You know why I hate? I shouldn't say hate. You know why I don't like this movie? Besides the acting, the direction, the screenplay, the writing.
Besides everything about it.
Is that when the movie ends, nothing has been resolved between Webster and Rob Rustler's character, Tommy. Other than they did the downhill skate.
Mm-hmm.
Webster wins, The whole thing feels like a Christmas Story dream sequence.
Yeah, it's the super mega happy ending.
Yeah, and the guy, yes, it is. And the guy's like, by God, Webster, you just got to deal with whatever, hacksaw skateboards,
something skates, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, and he gets the girl, and Rob Russell comes up after he just got publicly humiliated and goes, wow, you're one crazy mother. Yeah, you're one crazy mother, Webster. And then he turns to his sister and is like, you got a wild boyfriend. And then like, that's the, why would his defeat and public humiliation lead to him finally be accepting of this relationship?
I don't know. It's because that's how it happens in the 80s, I guess. It's just him besting him made him respect him, I guess, is what they're trying to go for, but it doesn't work because of how awful the character was for the first 90% of the film.
And that's not how bullies work. Bullies don't respond. That's not how bullies
work. No, they're going to be even more pissed.
Correct. You know? Oh, well, you got a sponsorship deal. You took money. You took money away from me.
And you're
publicly humiliating.
Doing things to my sister.
And you're fucking my sister who I want to fuck. But now I respect you because you went slightly faster than me downhill.
Yeah.
Maybe I do hate this movie.
I don't know. I enjoyed it just because it's so 80s and very California, and the dialogue is cringy and the acting is bad and it's just so cliche. I enjoyed it for how stupidly simple it is, but as just a regular movie, no, it's dog shit. It's unoriginal, very unoriginal.
The only thing
that makes it special at all is the skating. You have Tony Hawk's in this movie as a skater, you know, and it showcases a lot of that stuff. It was becoming very popular at the time, and so they had some of the biggest names that they could get there to be doing the stunt stuff. They should have taken some of that money and gotten better wigs for their stunt people, because they were really, really bad. But this film has some fun going on, but on the technical level, it's
Wash. Tony Hawk is also in one of the belated Police Academy sequels. That's not a mark of anything.
What?
Oh yeah,
I had no idea.
What? Tony Hawk is David Spade's stunt double in Police Academy 4?
David Spade is in a Police Academy movie?
You're not listening to the show, Lindsay. You're hurting my heart.
I'm sorry.
I put a 4-hour Police Academy episode out. You didn't listen to it?
I haven't had time. I've been watching movies to do this.
Lindsay, we're going to have to cover each Police Academy movie now, again, with you and I. I'm sorry. You just signed up for it. I give this movie a 4 out of 10. I knocked it down 2 points as we talked about it. I didn't like it at all. It's my number 4. The only thing that makes it slightly more redeemable than Certain Fury is that the downhill skating sequences, they're really going down steep hills, and some of it shot by like helicopter.
Yeah.
And there's these long tracking shots, and somebody was going to almost die when they made it. And I appreciate people almost dying for my entertainment.
Yeah, I gave this a 6 and put it right in the middle. I think that's correct. Yeah. Because it's a fun movie to watch. It's really stupid and silly. It's cliche. It's unoriginal. You watch this movie because of the time period that it was made in. Essentially, that's really the only reason. And because Josh Brolin is in it, but he doesn't do anything spectacular in this movie. He's not good. He's pretty vanilla. So it's just fun to watch a movie like this and how stupid it is and how the language they use and the culture that they're showcasing. It's just interesting.
I will grant you that. It's time for a recap. Coming in dead last for me is Certain Fury, a sleazy film for degenerates. No enjoyment whatsoever. 3 out of 10. 1986's Thrashin is my number 4, and I give it a 4 out of 10. Right in the middle of the pack, the movie that should have been number 1 should still be a stone cold classic. Everybody should be watching it going, oh my God, Harry Potter ripped this off. But instead, it's on a show called Forgotten Films, the 1980s. It is Young Sherlock Holmes. Number 2 is Blue Thunder. It is a mess of a movie, but it is a tour de force of practical filmmaking. 7.25 out of 10. And number 1, a odd, surreal, overly ambitious, overly soft focus, overly ADR'd, borderline disaster, Excalibur, which you give a 7.5 out of 10.
My dead last is Certain Fury. Like I said, it has some interesting things going on, but it is just absolute nasty filth, gross. The story that they put forth and the way that they do it and the characters they have, it's just disgusting. Young Sherlock Holmes had so much going for it, but failed to do these two important things: casting their characters and showcasing how Sherlock became Sherlock, and not just introducing him as a full detective, essentially. And I think that's what makes me hate it more, is that it had so much going for it, and that they slipped up on those few areas, and I think it makes me not like that movie even more.
I definitely understand that. Yep.
Right in the middle of the pack is Thrashin. It's just fun and stupid to watch. 2 is Excalibur. Like I said, I hadn't seen this since I was a kid, and it has some really genuinely incredible sequences in this movie. The acting is not great. The ADR makes it even more awkward. Mm-hmm. But it has some great surrealistic imagery, and it's got Helen Mirren. So that's number 2. And number 1 is Blue Thunder because of the stunts, the action, the explosions, the stupid dialogue, just what they were able to pull off that you will never be able to pull off again in that movie. So, do
you think having like a little stopwatch on your Casio is a good indicator of whether or not you're mentally ill?
I don't know. They're not very popular anymore.
As long as I test myself, and as long as I don't feel insane during these 25 seconds, I must be sane.
Yeah, I think that's a good indicator. I think they that's the test they give you. Yeah, that's one of the mainline tests.
If you're hanging on to sanity 25 seconds at a time, you're fucked. All right, if you had to recommend one movie from the movies we watched this week, it doesn't have to be your number 1, because you might find something else curious that you think other people should experience. What would it be?
I would say Young Sherlock.
Me too! All right, on our next episode, we'll be ranking the top grossing movies of 2002, 10 through 6, which includes Minority Report, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, Ice Age, Signs, Die Another Day. All right, Lindsay, when you're not busy being a pervert on Binge Movies in sunny tropical Akron, Ohio, talking to a man who comes to you from a void of oblivion and movies from yesteryear, where are you? What are you doing? Where are you at? What are you up to?
I'm usually either watching movies or talking about movies on my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Lindsay Washburn. I also talk about my extensive VHS collection. Yeah. You can find me on the Bad Movie Night podcast. We're live every Wednesday or Thursday, depending on who can make it that day.
Fair enough.
But the episodes are posted the next morning. And you'll also find me on the newest podcast that I started with my friend Jake, UFO Snap, where we get high as fuck and talk about alien shit. It's fun.
Could you get Action Bronson on?
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah. I need you to get action on. Okay, well, Lindsay will be back to talk about Waxworks 2 Lost in Time at some point in the future. It may be a Patreon exclusive. I may force her to do it on her channel. I don't know. But it's going to happen now. 100%.
It'll happen now.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
If you're going to do Waxworks 2, you kind of got to do Waxworks 1.
Right.
I think there's only 2 of them, right? Or is there a third one? Is there Waxworks 3?
I think there's a 3. There's at least a 3, I think. I'm not 100% on that, though. It's been a while since I've visited the Waxwork cinematic universe.
Waxwork.
Oh, no, there's just 2.
There's just 2. Well, you're getting off easy then. Come on.
That's not bad.
Nah, it's not too bad. All right. Well, Lindsay, I appreciate you as always. Go support her. Everybody who listens to this probably already supports you. If you're not subscribed to her YouTube channel, go subscribe. Smash those like buttons. Hit those bells for notifications. Subscribe to all of her podcasts, including the weird conspiracy one. If it gets real weird, they start talking about adrenochrome. Just know that I don't support that, and I disavow Lindsay Washburn in every form and fashion. They start talking about reptilian people in an unironic way. I disavow her publicly.
No, we just discuss. We discuss things. We don't endorse things. So
yeah, if you're talking about global elites and things like that, I do not. I disavow you. I disavow. Lindsay, we're now in a position where we all have to be out. It's like a possible mission for us in the podcast space. Mm-hmm. At any second, you have to be prepared to disavow somebody who you
exactly. You need to be ready to drop someone like a ton of bricks.
In
a moment's notice. Just for the
as soon as a screenshot drops, you got to be like, burn them. I never knew them.
Just throw it away from you.
Yeah,
as quick as possible.
Delete the episode. Never release it. Never heard of this person. Lindsay,
exactly.
Did I say she was my best friend on the internet? I've never heard of her. I hate her.
No. Fuck that bitch. What are you talking about?
Yeah, never heard of her.
I never knew her, never saw her, never cared for her.
Yeah, I will deny you 3 times before the cock crows, Lindsay Washburn. All right, until next time, binge on.